Well, Michael, what was GamerGate?
GamerGate was, to me, an opportunity to be an e-celeb. No, I'm kidding. I don't know what it's about. For me, it was personally, it was a great way just to meet some people I would never ever meet. That's what. That's why I'm a journalist in the first place. That and I can't do math. I just, I've met some really amazingly weird people that I will never cross paths with again, and that happened in GamerGate, and I'm really appreciative of that. And I'm appreciative even of the mistakes I made, or the mistakes of commission or omission, things I did or things I should have done. I'd rather make those mistakes than not to have tried. So I care less about people that said I didn't condemn harassment enough or I didn't speak to them enough, because that is better than the alternative. I'd rather always, if I live by any creed, I'd rather make mistakes of commission than omission. I'd rather do something and fuck it up than not try. And I hope that, if you're going to be still continuing this conversation, that you live by that creed too.
Yeah, thanks. I want to try to. I tried to. I ran these questions by anti-GamerGate people. Well, not yours actually, because I had to make a whole separate list of questions for you. But most of the questions that most people are getting, they were kind of reviewed by both sides, and to try and keep it fair and I don't know. I try to push back on my own people. I don't know if Oron Darklord expected me to push back as much as I did. Um, or Paulo Munoz. Do you remember Game Diviner? He was at your conference.
Yeah, I remember him.
Yeah, I interviewed him 3 days ago or something. I don't know when it was exactly. It's
Oh.
all blurring together now. But yeah, he actually wasn't super happy with the Rin the Forum for some reason. He thought he was biased against GG.
Well, what do you remember Andrew Eisen?
No, I don't think so. Were they
Super
pro or anti?
podcast. I don't know. I mean, I was on there a couple of times. It was a super action committee or something. It was just like one of those streams. It's a conversation. Um, I don't think they really took much of a position either way, but no, I enjoyed. Those are the things I enjoyed. So
Well, has this conversation been fun?
yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting to go back and revisit it. I don't know if it's interesting for anyone else, but
You got a bunch of viewers. Well, I mean, a bunch for me, I guess I should say.
well, I'm curious what's going to happen now. I think your true value in this, or any of the people listening, isn't going to be now or next year. I think 10 years, 15 years, 20 years out, where does Gamergate fall in how everything else works? Because I think it was the first major online movement, and I think it's informed politics. I think it's informed campaigning of candidates. Um, I think it's definitely informed journalism. So, like it or hate it, you want it to get. We need to get far enough away from it where the journalism fades and the historians take over. Because journalism is called the first draft of history, and first drafts always suck. So when you get far enough away from it where no one was involved in it, that's when you're objective enough to put it in its historical perspective. And I really do believe that there's a historical perspective for Gamergate. I know the people who hate Gamergate want to dismiss it as nothing but a stupid blip, a pimple on the ass of history, but I don't think that's true. I think you could still even hate it and admit that it had a ripple effect that's still going on today. And I am not smart enough or knowledgeable enough to make that kind of analysis or have access to the people that can shed some light on it. Maybe you do. So the real value in the documentation of all of this stuff, and I know it's going to sound stupid and pompous, but politicians or historians later on are probably going to watch these old streams on a weird site called youtube.com that used to be big back in the day, and um, draw inferences and lines out to where they are in that particular moment. So I really do believe that, there's some historical significance to this, that isn't going to be really known for another decade or two. And I'll leave you with that pompous ass thought.
Thanks. I know you probably want to wrap this up soon, but if we had to take a few more questions.
No, I can go for 6 hours again.
uh,
No, I'm
I
kidding.
I wish you were right, and I hope you're right, and maybe you're right. But one of the anti-Gamergate's greatest victories was that because they poisoned the well, I think so much that like people like me, I deleted all my old stuff, and there's like not archives of most of it. I got like 2 videos from back then, maybe like 4 actually, out of like 400 that I did, or like 300 maybe. Like it's they because we don't want our real life names associated with this because I wanted to be a normal person. I wanted to have like a normal job after college, and like I didn't want it to hurt my reputation because they lied about us so much. And a lot of other people I talked to, I was talking to Lisa, I interviewed her. She said the same thing. I was talking with Lord Nurgle. He's another big GamerGate guy. Like he's taken all of his stuff private. A bunch of us have because we're scared. And a lot of that stuff, once it's gone forever.
Well, then make copies of it and document it now, man. I mean, if this stuff's important to you, then someone's going to look at it later, and they're going to draw some conclusions. I mean, it's amazing what people like what we do now, like the history that we look at from 100 to 200 years ago. I can tell you that historians use old newspapers from the 1800s and 1900s to inform their perspective of history, and I can guarantee you that the uneducated, low-paid social rejects who were writing a news story in 1902 did not think that the story they were writing about was going to be in a history book 100 years later. So I really do believe that YouTube is going to be scraped by historians looking for trends. And whatever you think of Gamergate, shit show or not, it informed something. It did something. It's still going on. I don't know that they're going to listen to all 6 hours of my stream from Oliver Campbell.
Now,
I
one
like to comment, if the interview lasts longer than 6 hours, contact the physician immediately.
that was from Game Diviner from AirPlay, I believe. New
Yeah.
Game Diviner. Now,
I
obviously.
did go to the bathroom 3 times during that 6 hour stream.
By the way, if you need a bathroom break at any point, let me know. We'll probably be wrapping up in like the next like I don't know half hour, whatever, or whatever you feel
Half
comfortable with.
hour?
Hour? I don't know, whatever you want.
Oh, Jesus, man. All right. Well, go ahead. Ask me the rest of the questions because I don't want to be here that long. Not that
Okay.
I don't like you, but I'm older now than I was back then. I can't do it.
Hey, we can go as long as you want or short as you want. But I deleted everything. Someone in the chat says taking off YouTube is temporarily. Yeah, no, I wish I didn't. Um, gosh. Well, you did all this stuff. You did AirPlay. Wait. I want to say that I respect what you did, and Lynn Walsh too, and Rin LaForme. And I've been talking with Lynn Walsh about this project. I'd like to
Oh, great.
interview her, but I don't know if she's willing to do it or not. But but I really respect what you did and what Lynn Walsh did and what even Rin LaForme, which I invited him to the interview as well, but he didn't reply.
Well, they have respectable jobs, and so maybe they don't want to talk about it anymore. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's yeah. But anyway, you did all this stuff. You got the truth out about Gamergate, is what some people say, and it didn't do anything. Nothing mattered. Nothing changed. The media narrative
Really?
remains the same.
The media narrative about Gamergate remains the same, or the things that you complained about didn't get any better,
Well,
or both?
the former.
Well, if the goal of Gamergate was for Gamergate to be respected, you're right. That didn't happen. But if that's the goal, it's a pretty shitty goal. If the goal was to changed what everyone else thinks about issues that, like social justice and for Milo feminism or whatever. That you're right, that didn't happen either because political parties can't do it. Gamergate wasn't going to do it. If the idea was more narrow, which maybe didn't interest a lot of Gamergaters, but if it was to change the way that the gaming media covered them, that was very successful. One, Kotaku and Polygon did come up with ethics policies when they initially refused to do it, which we were like, well, how can you argue against an ethics policy? Two, they clamped down on a lot of the practices that they were doing that were pointed out. And three, it launched a bunch of independent people to start their own media outlets. The reason I think Gamergate people aren't happy, or any movement is unhappy, is that you never actually get recognized as winning. No one ever says it's because of your journalists know this. It's never because of your story. When someone wins a Pulitzer Prize and uncovers a chemical company dumping chemicals in a stream and causing cancer in a low-income community, they never say like, "Oh man, you got me. We're changing because of that story." It's always, "Well, we have new corporate management and we decided that nothing was really wrong, but we're going to change it anyway." Like you never, as a journalist, get the satisfaction of someone saying, "Oh man, you got me." Never happens. So you just have to, as a journalist, look at the results. Well, did they fix it? Are they still polluting that river? No. Well, let's go get a beer because we won. Gamergate is never going to get anyone to admit that they had an impact in a positive way. It's just never going to happen. But you have to look at, were there any positive impacts? There were a lot of negative impacts, and I don't approve of any of those. So when people tell me, if I say, as often as happened, well, there have been some positive impacts. Well, you're gainsaying all of the negative ones. Like, no, I couldn't do anything about that. If my job wasn't journalism, but something else, and I could actually stop the harassment, if that was my job, I would definitely try to do that. My job as a journalist, all I can do in Gamergate is what I'm trained to do. And that's what we focused on. That's what some people in Gamergate said they were about. Some people lied and used it as as an excuse to do other things, which is fine. But I think Gamergate had some success. I just don't think it's a success that many of them, as much success as they wanted or where they necessarily wanted it, but it didn't do nothing.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you've picked up, but like I wasn't a big games journalism guy. I was more on the creative freedom side. So, and I actually think we did have some successes there. Actually, I think that there was like this for a time, and maybe you disagree. I disagree probably on that. That's fine. I actually, um, that's good that we have these disagreements. But like, I think that like there was like this attempt to stifle the artistic freedom of game developers through like these social media campaigns and like petitions to get games banned from stores, like we saw in Australia. And I think that Gamergate stood up to that. I think that was like a victory because like that stuff largely went away. I feel, and I feel like the localization practices of companies have gotten like better for the most part. Whereas like the games are getting like butchered when they come over from Japan, where they take out like half the content, which they did in the past with like Ace Combat 3 and Fire Emblem Fates and Tokyo Mirage Sessions. Like I feel like that's gotten a bit better. So like I think there have been victories, and like on the ethics
Oh, okay.
side,
I think Kotaku covered that. That's the stuff I think they did really well. I would defend, like some Gamergaters would say Kotaku sucks. I hate Kotaku. And it would be the same thing as Gamergate. Kotaku sucks. All of it sucks. Nothing in Kotaku is good. I'm like, oh, if I find one good story in Kotaku, then you're wrong. And I found
yeah.
a lot of good stories because they would cover what you just talked about. They would send people to Japan. They would do that kind of journalism. It was when the stories got, look, when someone said, search Gamergate and in Google, what do you get? I'm looking that up now, and I just remembered this story. The Washington Post, the only guide to Gamergate you'll ever need to read. October 14th, 2014. One of the worst stories because it's just the dumbest headline. I mean, no journalist should write the only guide. But I also think I'm trying to remember if I've seen the Washington Post do anything that's stupid since. And I think the answer is probably no. So, but they're never going to admit that. So, I think it had that effect. Indirectly, they ended up hiring gaming journalists to cover stuff. So, you know, but you're right. If I look at that page, there are some major media outlets that wrote about this: NPR, Guardian, but they're really columns. They're not stories, and I don't blame those outlets for doing that because it was too hard to do the story and just easier to do the column. So